Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast for episode 103. I'm your host, Patrick, and this week we're going to be reviewing Cocoon. Amazon Prime has given us our first official look at the Fallout series, so we're going to react to that. We're going to talk about the very topical Simpsons Hit and Run, and the Dumpster Boy and I are going to be making our predictions of some of the reveals we think might be coming on the biggest night in gaming, the Game Awards, happening next Thursday, December 7th at 8, maybe? I don't remember the time. Look it up yourself. Welcome to the show, Cayman, my co-host, my sweet Dumpster Boy, Cayman Darty. How are you?
Patrick, I'm full sweat at the moment. I would say full sweating. I'm not technically sweating. I was in a rush. I'm late getting started. Obviously, we're late getting started, and it's my fault because I'm addicted, Patrick, to the PlayStation Portal.
Let's go. What? I'm assuming you're still playing Dragon Quest.
Yeah, dude, I'm 85 hours into Dragon Quest. I just love a good JRPG. You know, just a good JRPG where you can just sink your teeth into it. The PlayStation Portal is the perfect device for a JRPG. And so what happened was I was like, oh, it's fine. This is portable. I'll just take it with me. Well, then I got stuck. I was grinding, trying to get some level up. I made a promise that if I got the portal, I would platinum Dragon Quest 11. So that's what we're working towards right now. And so I'm over here, and then I look down, and I realize, like, oh, fuck, I'm out of time.
Sure.
And even though it's portable, guess what? You still lose time in that in between. So I'm sorry, but I'm here.
Hey, you're here, and that's really all that matters. And
Sure.
if the reason that you were late has to do with video games, I can't be mad. I can't be upset in the slightest, Cayman. You understand?
It's like what was it last week when you platinumed Alan Wake 2, like right before we went live, and it was like a breakneck speed. Have you ever done that where you're like, and I feel like I find myself, especially in situations like this where it's like doing a platinum run on a game, I feel like a lot of times that last like little bit of time getting prepped for like the big that last trophy, you know, is you're just like, all right, come on. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this. Like, I've stayed up so late before, just being like, just a little bit. Like, Tales of Arise, I think I platinumed at like 4 a.m. Because I was like, no, we're right there, man. We just got to get to level 99, baby. We're right there. 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to bed now.
And there you are. Yeah. I myself have been playing a lot of video games, Cayman. So, I mean, we're going to talk about it because this is the Spotlight Games podcast where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on this show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live. That way, if we go live a couple minutes late, you're still there. You understand?
Sure.
So you can be part of the conversation. Cayman, yes. You and I, normally what we do, we have a fun little, let's check in about the show. Let's talk about what we're going to be talking about before a show.
Yeah.
We didn't do any of that.
We didn't do any
You have no idea what we're going to be talking about other than what I said at the top of the show.
Absolutely no fucking idea.
No fucking idea. And so what I would like to kind of get you in the right headspace, Cayman, to get you ready to talk about some video games, I would like to hear about what you have been playing.
Yeah, so I want to give an update, a part 2 of my review of the PlayStation Portal, and then talk a little bit about Dragon's Quest. I know I've already done a little bit of this. So the big thing was last week was that I was going to Ohio for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And in the process, it would be the first time that I was like a significant distance away from my home PlayStation, my home Wi-Fi, to be able to test it out. So I've got some follow-up feedback.
Yes.
The first thing I want to say is, come to find out, we stayed at a Hilton hotel.
Yes.
For you to get the Wi-Fi, you have to like go in and it directs you through the internet, and then you have to sign in that way.
I was afraid of this.
So what I found out though is that you can still use your hotspot and then just supplement your hotspot with Wi-Fi. It doesn't work as well.
Okay.
But it works. So I had to do that with the portal because you couldn't. It doesn't just take you over. Interesting. So,
bastards. Do you think that's something that like there's an update on its way to so that there's like a little browser on the portal so that you can do something like at a hotel. Because I mean, one of the main reasons someone would buy the portal is if their life is on the road and they're in a lot of hotels all the time. Like,
yeah, and that
right?
would one would assume. And so yeah, it does pose a very interesting question about how that works. And I'm not 100% sure. What I can say is I use my hotspot instead, and it worked totally fine.
Okay.
I had a little bit of lag that came through, but I do want to point out the fact that one, the internet there wasn't fantastic anyway, and
Sure.
two, I was also like supplementing by running through a hotspot, which I didn't have great service anyway. So it was
Yeah.
like kind of a mixed bag of like, we'll see. We're in the worst case scenario. Let's see how it works. And it worked just fine. I don't think that it would have been fantastic to play something like Spider-Man or something that's like labor intensive.
Sure.
Something like a turn-based RPG, which is what I'm playing right now, worked totally fine.
Sure.
It didn't really bother me in the slightest. A couple of hiccups here and there, but truthfully, nothing too big of an issue. Playing right now Dragon Quest XI, the definitive edition. It's so I'm playing that right now through PlayStation, obviously on my portal. I'm roughly, I think, at this point, 85 hours in. From what I understand, platinum run is somewhere between 115 to 130.
So you
Just
got a
pending.
chunk left.
Yeah, man. I'm at the final boss right now of the main story. But if you know anything about JRPGs, that last boss you fight is never the last boss you fight. You have to kill God.
Yes.
That's kind of the thing. So that's my hope, is that I get to kill God again. I love killing God. It's my favorite pastime. So yeah, so I'm right there. It's actually funny. I was Sid was sitting on the couch next to me. She's watching Gilmore Girls. I'm playing Dragon Quest, and I kill a Metal King slime. And if you know anything about Dragon Quest, you know that those are like, that's XP, baby. That's where you grind out. That's how you get full levels, is with the Metal King slime, right? So I got one just randomly popped up, and I was like, holy shit. So I'm like flipping out. I'm like, kill it. I'm 90,000 XP on one kill. And that's immediate level for every single party member, just leveled up immediately. Yeah. So going into the boss, I looked it up. It said like your normal recommended level for beating the boss before you get to, because there's bosses you have to be 99, level 99, every party member. Like, and you have to have all the best gear to be able to defeat the last boss of the game. So I'm working towards that, but I do this, and it's like the recommended level when playing through normal to kill Mordegon, you need to be like a level 50. Well, Papa Bear's sitting in a level 60 right now, so we're just gonna spank that tush.
Oh yeah,
spank that little behind. But man, this game fucks, dude. It's so fucking good. And
remind me, this is not your first time through, correct?
So oddly enough, this is the first time I've gotten this far.
Got it. Okay.
I tapped out last time right around probably hour 60. So I didn't even get to the final Mordegon fight. I really like the way that Dragon Quest does. And like the thing is, my issue is normally, because I have to play these games, like you had to play the original Dragon Quest, you had to play it on. They did release it for the Switch, I think, eventually. But when I first played it was on the PlayStation 4. And so playing it, this game is designed like, this is the perfect game to be played in your hands, like handheld.
Yeah.
Because of the grinding and all this stuff. So like, it's just this is how you should play it. So this is the first time I'm going to do it, and I'm shooting for the platinum. I'm already over 50% trophies. And we're doing it. We're not stopping. We're not stopping here. The train doesn't stop here, Patrick.
The train simply couldn't stop here, is the thing, Cayman. You ask for it to stop, it's not gonna. That's that on that.
You've been playing Cocoon, Patrick.
I have, Cayman. Not only have I been playing Cocoon, but I have finished Cocoon. Cocoon, pretty short game, so I'm going to give you just a nice little review here. I can also give you a platinum review, even though I haven't platinumed this game. And the reason I didn't platinum this game is because I played it on Xbox Game Pass. But I very easy platinum. Like basically, all you got to do is finish the game and find like certain collectibles. That's all. So out of the gate, if you're a platinum hunter and you want to play this on a PlayStation, Cocoon, one of the easiest platinums out there, I would think. This game is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's about 5 hours ish. It could be longer depending on how quick or rather not quick you are to its puzzles. So for those of you who don't know Cocoon is it's like a puzzle game. It is made by people who left Playdead, which is the studio that made games like Limbo and Inside. This is the first game of this studio. I forgot to pull the actual studio's name, but it's very reminiscent of those games. You're a little bug guy. You're going around this breathtaking environment. I'll go ahead and say too, like if you have tryptophobia, which is the fear of like things with lots of circles, like a beehive, things like that, don't play this game. That's for certain. A lot of bug stuff. If you don't like bugs, you're not going to like Cocoon. But just as a piece of art, this game is breathtaking. The art direction is incredible. It's a really simple game. There's 2 buttons, your joystick and the button A or X. You jump, you grab things, or not, you don't even jump. Sorry, you just grab things. That's it. But it is. You might remember several weeks ago on this podcast, I talked about a little game called Viewfinder. I compared it in several ways to Portal in that it does something, or it did something rather, in a puzzle game that I'd never experienced before. And I kept having this sense of like, I can't believe this is happening. But that game eventually kind of lost steam, didn't really land at the finish. I didn't really care what was happening. It just felt more like a toy.
Sure.
This game, Cocoon, does all of the things I wish Viewfinder did. In that it has these gameplay elements that kind of break your brain in the way that they work in a fun way. And it delivers all 5 hours to the fullest. This like kind of like general sense of what the game is. It's a go from point A to point B video game. And you're just going to hit a lot of obstacles along the way. I don't want to necessarily spoil all the different puzzle elements because I think that's part of the fun, is figuring out, okay, what does this do and how do I use it to my benefit? But just as like an example to kind of what you can expect as you go through this world as this little bug looking dude, you come across like various objects, and these objects do different things in the environment. So the first one that you come across, it's this like orange orb. And when you're holding the orb, there might be like a path that wasn't there before that's now there, as long as you're holding the orange orb. And like, it'll show you like there should be something here, but you don't see it. You get the orb, you go there, now you see it, now you can walk on it. Just one example of like what one of these items can do that kind of changes the world that you're in. And then eventually these orbs also act as like worlds. In that they're like, you can go into the orb, and in that orb is like a different landscape, is a different world. And so then the puzzles start becoming like going from one world to the next, like with the orbs, and figuring out like, how do I get through this thing by going in this world versus that world and bringing things and taking things back. And it's just like this really weird kind of thing where like, as I'm describing it, this probably makes no fucking sense, but as you're playing it, like it immediately clicks and it immediately makes sense and it feels good doing it. So if you like a puzzler, if you like a really pretty game to look at while you're playing it with some really like beautiful music, Cocoon is great. Like I can't recommend it enough. I think for me, it's probably at the top of my like indie game of the year list for the games that I have played. But it really delivers. I think, we're a little behind the scenes, a little peek here. We're kind of like figuring out an official Spotlight Games review score. Like, what is our scale? What are we? So for now, because we still haven't really figured that out, I'm just going to give this game a 5 out of 5. I'm really impressed by this game. What it sets out to do, it fucking nails. And so I think, am I going to put it up against a Tears of the Kingdom, an Alan Wake 2, a Baldur's Gate? Probably not. But I think this, for what it is, especially if you have Game Pass, it's free. But it is on everything. So if you're listening to this, you don't have Game Pass, but you have a PC, a PlayStation, or a Switch, it's on all of those things. So go play this game. I think it's only $20. It might even be on sale for Cyber Monday week or whatever. But it's a good game. So all of that to say, came in based on what I have said. Does this feel like a game that you might try?
So it wasn't huge. Like I could respect Limbo and Inside, but I was never really big on them. Mainly just just the design of them. I don't really know. How does it play compared to something like that? Is this going to be one of those frantic fast pace where I feel like Limbo especially had me
Sure.
feeling like I'm having to rush through a lot of portions for
That
certain things.
anxiety inducing feeling those
Yeah.
games would give you, it doesn't. Not in my
Okay.
experience, at least.
Okay.
There's very, very little combat in this
Mhm.
game because all you can do is interact and move. But there are some what you would call boss battles.
Mm.
But I didn't find any of those to be overly anxiety inducing or even overly challenging. I think
Sure.
I probably only had to restart one boss fight a couple times. So it didn't ever feel there were some moments, especially in Limbo, where it's I don't understand what
Yeah.
I'm doing wrong here, and I keep dying, and
Yeah.
that's not fun.
There
I didn't
was
ever have that experience.
I think it was Limbo. It might have been Inside. There's one level in particular where you're having to use boxes and they portal you. Do you know what I'm
I think
talking?
that's
Remember that?
Inside. Yep.
And
Uh-huh.
that was the most that's where I gave up on Inside. I was like, this is the most
Yeah.
infuriating fucking shit. I
Yeah.
respect what this game's doing. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
Cocoon sounds much more up my alley, and looking to see that 70% on PSN profile, 70% have gotten the platinum.
Yeah.
That always excites me. And 5 hours sounds wonderful compared to the fact I put 85 into Dragon
Yeah.
Quest 11 right now.
For sure.
With that being said, I do want to point out that the developer is Geometric Interactive, and it
Thank
was
you.
published by Annapurna.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
The game, it doesn't necessarily tell an overt story, but it has that indie juice of
Mhm.
it's saying something. I
Sure.
might not understand what it's saying, but I had a really good time playing the game.
I love that.
And it's a game that I could I could see myself going back to because of how short it is, and it
Yeah.
just feels so good.
Yeah.
And it's really pretty, especially on that big screen. So I had originally picked up this game on Steam to play it on my Steam Deck, but I was scrolling through what was on Game Pass and I saw it and I was like, let me just see if it's on my big screen, am I going to want to play it on the big screen? I wanted to play it on the big screen.
Yeah.
That being said, if you wanted to play it on a handheld, I think it'll do just fine, but it's a
Nice.
really, really pretty game. Cayman, I have one other game that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm going to give you the choice.
Mm.
Would you rather hear me talk about Jusant by Don't Nod, the makers of Life is Strange? Or would you rather hear me talk about my experience 30 hours into Sea of Stars? That's been a little quiet. You haven't heard me talk about this one yet. That's been a little quiet. I've been doing that one in the background a little bit. What are you more interested
Oh
in?
man. So first things first, I really want to know your thoughts on Sea of Stars because I think that's the next game I'm gonna pick up. That was the whole purpose of the portal, was to play that.
Yeah.
And then Dragon Quest just took over. I want to know about that, but also I'm very curious about what the hell Jusant is. I've never heard of this game.
I can do both, and I can be brief. So Jusant is a game, like I said, by Don't Nod. So if you're not familiar with their work, they typically have done games a la Telltale's The Walking Dead, very much like a walking sim adventure game, a lot very dialogue driven.
Yeah.
But Jusant is a game where you are essentially climbing and kind of being told a story as you're climbing this giant structure. There are other climbing based games that have come out kind of recently that are seemingly just for the gameplay of it, of just that feeling of just climbing and climbing and climbing forever. There's this one, I can't remember what it's called, but it was really big on Twitch for a while.
Yeah.
It's not very much like that at all, because it feels a lot more very capital IND, like that Annapurna type feeling of really pretty art style. And you're so the way that the game works, you can jump and then you can grab things, and your triggers are your arms. So if you want to reach and grab with your right arm, you press R, and then you press L to grab with your left arm, which doesn't sound like it would feel good, but it actually feels pretty good. They've really nailed the feeling of this game, but it's essentially these micro puzzles as you're climbing this giant mountain of how do I get from point A to point B here? And also, while I'm going along this path, there's going to be little notes that you're finding that's kind of telling the story of what happened in this world. Also playing it on Game Pass. So that's a game, if you got Game Pass, you can play it there. But I think also is on everything, although I'm not 100% on Switch. It might not be on the Switch. But it's a game that I believe we saw at one of these, whether it was like an Xbox showcase, a PlayStation showcase, one of these like third-party showings at one of the first-party studio showcases, showing off this game. And it's a cool game. A friend of mine, Daniel, recommended that I play it, and I like it a lot. So I've only played like an hour of it. So I could probably have more full thoughts next week.
Interesting.
But it's a pretty cool game. Certainly not like, because we're at the end of the year and everything in my mind is like, is this a game of the year contender? Certainly not a game of the year contender, but we're like a fun game to play. That's, worth your time if it looks interesting to you. So then with that out of the way, let's talk about Sea of Stars.
Yes, please.
Before I jump into my thoughts, I want to ask you, because we've not talked about this game in a long time. How much did you play of Sea of Stars?
I was about 10 hours in.
10 hours in. Okay. So yeah, I'm about 30 hours, like 31, 32 hours in. So I don't want to necessarily say where I'm at in the story, but I feel like when I look at like an IGN walkthrough of all the chapters and levels and stuff, I feel like I'm about 80% through this game.
That's what it sounds like. I think like the platinum run is 50, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm playing this on my Steam Deck, so I'm getting the Steam trophies, but I'm not I'm probably not going to try to 100% it, because I'm not playing it on the PlayStation. But it's a very good video game. I think for those of you who might not be fully aware of what Sea of Stars is, we've talked about it a few times on the show, and came and talked a little bit about it last week, but it's like kind of feels like an old school JRPG, has that retro look, like pixel art look, turn-based combat. You play as one of two characters. You have a party, you're doing spells, you're doing magic, you're fighting things, you're blocking things, you're using potions, that kind of shit. And you're going through this world and experiencing a really lovely, like wholesome story. I'm really enjoying this game so far. I think the combat system's great. Like it's I love a simple combat system in a JRPG like this. Although this is a Western feeling, like a Western made JRPG, right?
Yeah, it's weird, right?
It's weird, but it very much feels like a JRPG of our childhood. But I think what I like most about the game is the sense of exploration. It's the kind of game where the world just like kind of keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ever get too big, at least in my experience. And so you're going around these environments, and it's the rare game for me where, even though the only map is like an overworld map that you get later in the game, there's no maps for like individual spaces that you're in. I don't need one, because it's designed so well that I don't need to it's designed in such a way that I always know where to go and where I can go off the beaten path to look for other things. Like it's the signposting in this game is really well done, where I kind of always know where I should be going. I'm having a really good time with it, but I gotta say, I don't, and this might upset some people, I don't feel like this is a game of the year contender for me. And I think the reason for that, I think maybe in a different year, maybe in like a lighter year, this could be game of the year. But I know, like, going into the Game Awards announcements, there were a lot of people, both within our sphere and outside in the bigger game space, being like, I think Sea of Stars should be one of the 6 nominated. And I just don't think it is of the same echelon as the other kind of huge games. And I don't mean huge as in size. I mean huge as in like what they're doing games of this year. Granted, I think it has a great shot for best independent game, or whether it's independent or debut indie. I forget which one it's nominated for. I think it has a really good shot to win that category. But I think it's good. And I think if it's a game, or if this is a game style that you're drawn to, I think you're going to have a good time. But I think for me, that like the story just isn't hitting the notes that is like moving me per se. And I think for a game like that feels kind of this simple in a lot of ways, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I kind of rely on the story to elevate it, and it's just not doing that for me. But I see how, if this story does that for you, this is certainly a game of the year contender for other people. I get that for sure. And it's a game that I absolutely will be finishing. Like, I don't want to necessarily, I want to add that caveat of like, I'm not saying this is bad by any means. I just feel like when you're comparing it to Zelda, Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, that it's hard for me to put it at that same level of those games personally.
Yeah.
But I think once you get back into it and do those remaining 40, 50 hours to get the platinum, like you were spot on with like, this is a great game. And this is one that is really gonna, I think you'll probably end up liking it a little more than me. If I were to guess. But again, not to say that this is bad by any means, but I think I was, and it might be that I fell victim to the hype. Like I was kind of expecting this to like kind of blow me away. And I was like, oh, this is a really good, well-made video game. And that's kind of all that I've had with it so far. But excited to see where it goes from here. Because I am having a really good time with it.
Well, I look, and I think that's the thing. Like when the time I put into it, like I can very much tell you, like this is a Cayman ass video game. But that's just who I am, and I don't even really know why that is. There really is no reasoning for that for me to be like, well, how do we get here? But like when you talk about something like Cocoon, I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And like the platinum, I love a 5-hour game, and I love an easy I love platinums that are not hard. And aren't going to be putting me up over 100 hours to get. But with that being said, though, like I look at that being like, yeah, like Cocoon sounds like a game that I will play, but I probably won't have that same enjoyment. But that's totally, and I think that's the thing, right, man? Like at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is to bring those opinions forward, with bring those where we can say these things, Patrick.
For sure. And something that I think at least I appreciate about the relationship that you and I have, both on camera and off, is that we have different tastes.
Sure.
And so a game that's going to really speak to me in certain ways might not speak to you in the same ways, and vice versa. But as long as we're having fun, that's all I care about. Also, before we move on, we got friends in the show, Terry and Jordan, aka Cognitive Clips, in the chat, and unfortunately, Cayman, Jordan has unsubscribed from this channel because of my opinions of Sea of Stars, it seems. But hey, that I was afraid that might be an outcome, but it happened, and I'm gonna still love you deeply, Jordan.